Storms moving into the east right now. Late today, tornado watches stretching 1,000 miles from Florida all the way up to Philadelphia.
What if archaeologists opened a tomb and found a metal coffin that shouldn't exist? Deep in the rugged highlands of Peru, a team of researchers stumbled upon something that instantly shattered expectations. A sealed metal sarcophagus buried beneath layers of ancient stone. At first glance, it looked ceremonial. But the moment it was uncovered, confusion spread through the excavation site because the metal didn't match anything known from the region's ancient cultures. Civilizations like the Inca civilization and the Moche civilization crafted tombs from stone, clay, and gold ornaments, but not solid metal coffins directly below the burial chamber. Hidden beneath the mountain's bedrock, researchers detected a massive hollow structure. After weeks of careful excavation, a stone entrance emerged, one that appeared to lead into a previously unknown underground temple complex. A temple so well concealed that it had remained untouched since ancient times. Unusual phenomena have started to occur across the United States, almost all at once rather than gradually over years, as nature seems to be shifting into an unpredictable new phase. Strange lights were seen extending across the horizon long after sunset in a number of states, according to eyewitness reports and mobile footage that has left experts baffled. Another mystery emerged shortly after, where residents in quiet neighborhoods were startled as their windows were shaken by incredibly loud booms that reverberated across small towns and homes. However, there were no storms nearby, and no planes or explosions were reported to account for these massive sonic disturbances. The water then started to rise without warning. In a matter of minutes, flash floods transformed busy roadways into raging rivers as they swiftly rushed through cities and trapped people in their vehicles. Soon afterward, the earth itself started to react in ways we have never seen before. Where solid land had previously been stable sinkholes and massive fissures in the ground, opened up, swallowing everything in their path. Even the animals appeared to notice something out of the ordinary, as birds altered the way they flew and moved in chaotic patterns, while near shorelines fish congregated in odd numbers, as if they were trying to escape something deep within the ocean. In states like Oklahoma and Florida, heavy storms have intensified with a terrifying speed, as dark clouds roll overhead and thunder shakes the foundations of buildings, marking the arrival of the deadliest lightning strikes ever recorded. It is a scene where the sky destroys giants as blinding bolts tear through the atmosphere and strike the ancient trees of the forest with surgical precision. The chaos reached a breaking point on March 13, 2026, when a deadly tornado killed 3 people in Enderlin, North Dakota. This was identified as a rare EF5 storm, which is an absolute monster of nature and the first of its kind recorded in the United States since 2013. But the atmospheric terror did not stop there. In Texas, the sky began dropping what residents described as ice bombs during a massive hailstorm, where giant hailstones, the size of bricks, began crashing to the ground, destroying roofs and shattering windshields in seconds. Beyond the weather, the very ground we walk on is showing signs of deep fractures. In California, a major earthquake began as a fracture deep underground, releasing massive amounts of energy that traveled through the earth like invisible waves, causing panic across the coast. This pattern is global, and the enormity of it is becoming impossible to ignore. On March 6, 2026, heavy rains triggered sudden flash floods in Nairobi, Kenya, where cars were swept away like toys and streets turned into deep rivers, leaving thousands of people struggling to escape the rising water. Just days later, on March 14, 2026, in Babahoyo, Ecuador, deadly floods killed 13 people and affected over 54,000 others as rivers reached critical levels and destroyed hundreds of homes in a single night. Perhaps most mysterious of all was an event in Arizona, where a massive square-shaped shadow suddenly appeared in the sky. Witnesses say the shape slowly moved across the clouds, casting what looked like a perfectly straight edge across the sky, with no aircraft or visible object responsible for it. Some believe it could be a rare atmospheric phenomenon, while others think something much stranger and perhaps otherworldly was responsible. One may explain each incident on its own as rare moments created by nature, but another discussion is emerging as investigators attempt to figure out what is truly happening to our planet. One question has become unavoidable for many who are paying careful attention. What caused all of this to occur at the exact same time? Please make sure you stay with us until the very end of this video because the situation is developing rapidly, and I will be offering a special collective prayer for everyone's safety and protection during these difficult times. We need to stand together in faith as we witness these amazing and terrifying phenomena. Before we go any further, please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on these global events. Also, I encourage you to offer a brief prayer in the space provided for comments below. This simple act will help to sustain your faith and provide support for our community while we all experience these life-changing events together. Your prayers and your presence here matter more than ever as we search for the truth behind these mysteries. The initial indicators did not show up on the ground for a large number of Americans because they materialized in the heavens as a divine warning that the world was shifting. Residents in a number of states have noticed something deeply unsettling in the evenings in recent months because the way the sun set was different. Long after the sun had set, the sky frequently burned with strong shades of scarlet, violet, and dark purple that lingered beyond the horizon rather than fading into gentle orange and blue. On many nights, the hues persisted much longer than normal, giving the clouds an almost unearthly radiance, as if the atmosphere itself was on fire. As many attempted to document what they were witnessing, images and videos soon started making the rounds on the internet with people asking, "Is this a sign of the end times?" Similar pictures kept showing up from California to the Midwest. The colors of the flaming skies seemed exceptionally strong, but there was more than just the hues. Even when there was no rain below, lightning bolts started to occur well above the clouds in certain places. These electrical displays, which occasionally lasted for hours and illuminated far-off cloud formations in steady rhythmic pulses, were described by witnesses as silent flashes of light darting across the sky, while the air remained absolutely dry, leading many to wonder what power was charging the air above. According to meteorologists, certain meteorological circumstances, particularly when layers of warm and cold air interact far above the ground, can produce strange lighting displays. The way sunlight scatters through the atmosphere can be influenced by dust particles, moisture, and temperature changes, resulting in striking colors at sunrise and sunset. However, the timing of these events seemed extraordinary and prophetic to many onlookers. They weren't confined to one area. Reports surfaced from many regions of the nation during the same broad time frame, giving the impression that the environment was acting differently simultaneously throughout a large area, as if a global switch had been flipped. People have frequently glanced to the sky throughout history in an attempt to make sense of their surroundings. Ancient societies thought that deeper changes occurring on the planet below were reflected in the heavens, and now we must ask ourselves if we are witnessing the same. Unusual indications in the sky are occasionally portrayed in the Bible as attention-grabbing moments that make people stop and think about their Creator. One thing is certain, regardless of whether these brilliant skies are just the product of uncommon atmospheric conditions or anything more unique. In America, a lot of individuals have begun to look up more intently than they used to, fearing what might appear next. I want to ask you, do you think these blood-red skies are just a coincidence, or is something massive coming our way? Please stay until the very end because I will be offering a special prayer for all of you. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and offer a brief prayer in the comments below to sustain your faith during these amazing phenomena. Because another enigma emerged shortly after the sky started to change, and this time it was heard rather than seen, creating a sense of profound dread that something deep within our reality was fracturing. Residents in a number of states reported hearing powerful explosions that reverberated across tiny towns and neighborhoods with a force that felt supernatural and heavy. The noise was strong enough to rattle doors, shake windows, and bring people running outdoors to investigate, fearing that the very fabric of their world was tearing apart. At first, a lot of people thought it must have been thunder, but the sky was clear and uncomfortably silent. Others thought a jet might have breached the sound barrier, but neighboring airports reported nothing out of the ordinary, and there were no planes nearby, leaving a haunting void where an explanation should have been. Some even thought there had been an explosion close by, but as the silence returned, the mystery only deepened. Calls were made to emergency services as panic began to spread through local communities. Police repeatedly searched the surrounding areas, but they were unable to locate any evident source. No crash sites, no lightning strikes, no construction explosions. Just a strong boom that appeared out of nowhere, as if the atmosphere itself was screaming. Scientists frequently refer to these inexplicable noises, which have been heard for years in various parts of the nation, as sky quakes, and they might occasionally be connected to changes in air layers far above the Earth, distant acoustic phenomena, or atmospheric pressure waves. However, a lot of incidents are still unsolved, and many believe these are the final warning shots before the great global shift. There is more to the new claims than just the sound, because it is the pattern that is truly terrifying. The timeline is accelerating, and the frequency of these booms suggests that we are approaching a total global reset. Similar booms have been documented in other areas in a little amount of time, leaving locals perplexed and wondering what might be causing them. Shortly after hearing, the enigmatic sound videos started to surface online, showing people going outside and looking in shock at the sky and nearby streets. Most of the time, only quiet was seen, but it was a suffocating silence that felt like the calm before a massive storm. The most disturbing aspect for many observers was the quiet, because there was no obvious source, no obvious direction, and no obvious explanation for a sound strong enough to shake buildings, as if the earth was being struck by an invisible hammer. The enigmatic booms added another layer to the expanding list of strange occurrences occurring around the nation, while experts continue to look for solutions, fearing that time is running out. Because the next sign would appear somewhere far less enigmatic, even though the sky was producing unusual lights and now strange sounds. In a number of U.S. regions, it would be accompanied by water, and not just rain, but a cleansing flood. Cities and towns were suddenly hit by flash floods with little notice, and what had begun as a typical downpour soon became much more hazardous, as the heavens seemed to open up with a vengeful force. Dry streets became swift-moving streams in a matter of minutes. Water surged across highways, trapping several cars before anyone could respond, and trapping drivers in traffic who watched in horror as the world they knew disappeared under a muddy tide. In a matter of seconds, crossings began to resemble rivers meandering through communities rather than city roadways. Parts of Texas, Missouri, Kentucky, and California were among the hardest hit, with heavy rainfall overwhelming drainage systems and flooding entire blocks, as if the earth could no longer contain the weight of what was coming. Locals talked about how rapidly everything changed, and how the rain appeared to be typical at first, but as it persisted, water started to accumulate more quickly than it could drain, signaling a breakdown in the natural order. Little puddles grew into large pools, which quickly joined together to create currents powerful enough to carry trash, cans, debris, and even parked cars like toys in a bathtub. As water levels continue to rise, emergency personnel were called to rescue people who were stranded inside buildings or trapped in cars. While many wondered if this was the beginning of the great flood many have predicted. According to meteorologists, flash floods can occur when a lot of rain falls more quickly than the earth or drainage systems can absorb it. Because roads, walkways, and buildings keep water from penetrating the soil, making urban areas more vulnerable. However, the speed at which these floods proceeded was particularly concerning, as if nature was in a hurry to reclaim its territory. In several locations, it took less than an hour to turn ordinary roadways into hazardous floodwaters. Videos of muddy water flowing through neighborhoods, rolling across parking lots and pushing cars aside. As if they weighed nothing, became viral online, serving as a digital warning to those who refused to see the signs. For many locals, the most terrifying aspect of the floods was their suddenness. Because only hours before everything had appeared to be perfectly normal, but normal is a thing of the past as we approach 2027. Even while the water gradually started to recede in some areas, the peculiar chain of events that was occurring across the nation was far from finished. The ground itself would then come into focus, which was much more unnerving, because when the foundation fails, nothing is safe. Another disturbing trend started to emerge throughout the nation as floodwaters gradually subsided in many places. This time, the transformation was taking place right under people's feet, as the very soil began to reject the structures built upon it. Reports of unexpected sinkholes and ground fissures started to surface in a number of areas. Where stable ground had existed only hours before, solid roads, walkways, and open space abruptly collapsed, leaving gaping craters in their place, resembling scars on the face of the planet. Some communities had nighttime pavement collapses. Driveways broke. As the earth underneath them moved, streets that had sustained traffic for decades abruptly broke apart, as if a massive invisible hand was pulling the earth from beneath us. Residents talked about seeing unexpected scenes when they woke up. While engineers examined the damage, emergency personnel had to block off entire areas due to large cavities emerging in the center of yards or roadways. Vehicles were occasionally left stranded with their wheels dangerously close to the collapsing earth, near the margins of recently created sinkholes, symbolizing the precarious position of humanity right now. According to geologists, sinkholes can develop when subterranean rock gradually dissolves over time, because layers of limestone or other soft rock may be eroded by water running beneath the surface, leaving behind empty voids. The surface eventually collapses when the soil above is unable to sustain its own weight. The procedure itself is not brand new, but the suddenness of these falls caught many locals off guard, and the massive scale points toward a tectonic plates shifting timeline, where some say the tectonic plates themselves will begin a violent dance. In a few of instances, there had been no obvious sinking, no minor fissures, and no obvious warning indicators. The earth below had been quietly deteriorating for years, as the land simply collapsed, just as the old world will collapse to make way for the new era. Images and videos of the destruction rapidly went viral on the internet. In the middle of residential neighborhoods, building sites, and streets, there were large holes in the ground. The pictures conveyed a disturbing message to a lot of individuals that our sense of security is an illusion. Something that had looked sturdy and dependable was not as steady as it seemed. A more profound question started to emerge as individuals all around the nation were seeing strange changes in the sky, the water, and now the ground itself. What may happen next if nature was undergoing so many simultaneous changes? And are these the birth pains of the events of 2027? Another pattern started to emerge while people were still attempting to make sense of the odd happenings in the sky, the sea, and even the ground beneath their feet. Animals from all throughout the nation provided the indications this time. Locals began observing strange wildlife behavior. The alterations initially appeared to be minor and easily overlooked. However, as more reports and videos surfaced online, many people started to notice that something felt off, as if the creatures of the earth were communicating a warning we are too blind to see. Large flocks of birds were observed flying in tight circles for prolonged periods of time, in a number of locations moving in patterns that appeared restless and abnormally dense. Some flocks appeared disoriented, shifting course several times before eventually vanishing over the horizon, as opposed to traveling smoothly across the sky, almost as if the magnetic poles were already shifting in preparation for the global change. Fishermen and locals reported seeing enormous groups of fish congregating near lakes and coastal areas. In several areas, schools of fish moved abnormally near the water's surface, forming black clusters just below the surface, as if they were gasping for a breath of a world that is no longer there. Sightings of wildlife also started to shift, with predators and prey alike moving in ways that defy instinct. I ask you now, as we see the animals panic and the earth crumble, are you prepared for what is coming? Please stay with us until the very end, because I will be offering a special prayer for your protection and for your families as we navigate these uncertain times together. Share your thoughts below, and do you believe the end-time predictions are real, or is this just nature acting out? Like and subscribe to join our community of faith, because we are going to need each other more than ever in the coming months. And I will personally pray for every soul who leaves a message of hope in the comments tonight. During the day, deer, foxes, and other creatures were seen roaming through places they wouldn't ordinarily be, appearing in the middle of busy streets in suburban Illinois, and wandering through quiet parks in New Jersey, as if they were searching for an exit from a world that had suddenly become unfamiliar. Some appeared extremely vigilant, stopping often to look around with a wide-eyed intensity, before moving on as if they were tracking an invisible predator that humans were completely blind to. Animals are quite sensitive to changes in their surroundings, according to biologists, because long before people notice them, many species are able to sense minor temperature changes, ground vibrations, and variations in air pressure that signal a coming shift in the physical world. Because of this, strange animal behavior has occasionally been seen prior to significant natural occurrences like storms or earthquakes. But what is happening now in the forests of Oregon and the plains of Kansas feels like a collective panic among the wild inhabitants of the land. However, scientists warn that animals act erratically for a variety of reasons, and that not all odd movements indicate danger, yet people were drawn to the timing. Because while the nation was already dealing with bizarre skies in the Midwest and enigmatic booms in the Deep South, these odd patterns were becoming apparent in a way that defied logical explanation. It seemed to some onlookers that nature itself was responding to something greater, something that people yet didn't fully comprehend, as if the earth was preparing for a violent labor. And many people started looking for explanations outside of science as they watched these events play out across the American landscape. Some looked to the past, while others looked to long-forgotten cautions that had been whispered through generations. Many people started looking for answers as accounts of strange occurrences spread across the nation, from the coast of California to the heart of the Appalachian Mountains. Many looked to something much older, while others looked to science and history, searching for a precedent that simply does not exist for this level of simultaneous chaos. The Bible has chronicled instances of strange natural shifts that occur at uncertain periods in the world for ages, and many Americans are now turning back to those ancient pages with trembling hands. Jesus predicted in the Gospels that there will be upheavals in both human civilization and the natural world in the future, and he talked of strange occurrences on earth, indications in the heavens, and rising panic among nations as people tried to comprehend what was going on around them. These indicators weren't portrayed as singular catastrophes. Instead, they were called the beginning of sorrows, a term that alludes to the initial phases of a far more significant change that will reshape every mountain and valley on this planet. The scripture states that these occurrences would serve as warning signs, moments, intended to alert people and call attention before more significant events take place as the final countdown for humanity begins. Natural occurrences have frequently been interpreted in a variety of ways throughout history. And for some, these are just the Earth's natural cycles, including storms in the Gulf and floods in the Northeast, that have always occurred since the beginning of time. Others think they occasionally have deeper significance, believing that the Earth is a living, breathing entity that is currently in agony. Many observers find that the timing, rather than the events themselves, is what makes the current moment noteworthy, because never before have we seen the sky, the water, and the ground all fail us at the exact same hour. Some people are paying more heed to these old warnings. As a result of strange skies in the Carolinas, enigmatic booms in the valleys of Virginia, abrupt floods in the streets of St. Louis, and earth collapses in the suburbs of Florida, all occurring at the same time. Interpretations, however, differ greatly, as several scientists insist that unusual natural occurrences can coincidentally cluster together because ecosystems react to changes in their surroundings, and weather patterns vary as geological processes continue deep beneath the crust. But the questions still stand, and the air is thick with a tension that science cannot soothe. Throughout human history, periods of uncertainty have frequently prompted people to consider more profound ideas regarding the future, the course of humanity, and the possibility that a new era is about to begin, one that may be marked by fire and trial. And another reality keeps emerging as people look for solutions in both ancient literature and contemporary science. Because not only is nature changing, but civilization as a whole is also changing in ways that feel permanent and irreversible. Unusual occurrences in the natural world persisted, but anxiety of a different kind was growing throughout the United States as the pressure was no longer just environmental. The ground, the sea, or the sky were not the source of this pressure. Instead, it originated from within society itself, as a dark cloud of discord settled over the people. Many Americans have noticed that the nation is becoming increasingly divided in recent years, and these political differences have grown more intense to the point where common ground has become a distant memory. Discussions that used to only take place in government buildings in Washington, D.C., now swiftly travel to social media workplaces, and even family get-togethers, destroying relationships and ending friendships in an instant. Once neighbors who lived in the same neighborhoods in peaceful towns today frequently find themselves on opposing sides of contentious disputes, looking at each other with suspicion and hidden anger. In a number of large cities like New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, protests and demonstrations have increased in frequency as the streets become a battleground for competing ideologies. Conflicts between opposing parties have occasionally erupted from peaceful meetings, demonstrating how tense the country has become, as if the entire population is standing on a powder keg, waiting for a single spark. In many areas, worries about public safety, economic instability, and criminality have also increased, leaving people to lock their doors with a fear they have never known before. While some citizens worry about the nation's long-term future, others claim they feel less safe than they did a few years ago, observing a world that seems to be spiraling out of control. Major institutions are no longer as trustworthy, and I am aware that surveys reveal a decline in public trust in the government, the media, and other institutions that formerly supported social stability, as the pillars of our republic begin to crack and crumble under the weight of lies. For many observers, what was previously firm now seems questionable, and the very foundation of the American dream feels like it is being pulled apart by invisible forces. Large nations frequently have periods of social division, as historians frequently point out, and every nation goes through cycles of political change, reform, and dispute. However, some people start to perceive the situation differently when these tensions coincide with strange natural occurrences occurring in the very same week. Social unrest and environmental devastation have frequently coincided throughout history, serving as the twin horsemen of a falling empire. Societies that are already divided may experience more stress during times when nature becomes unpredictable, and the current state of affairs poses a significant question to some observers who wonder if we have finally reached the end of the line. What kind of future might be in store if civilization and environment are both exhibiting signs of stress at the same time, and if the very heavens are screaming a warning that we are refusing to hear? Because history demonstrates that nations frequently reach turning points when pressure grows simultaneously from multiple directions, and many people who are seeing these occurrences are beginning to believe that one of those times may be coming faster than any of us are prepared to handle. When considering all that has occurred, each incident may not appear particularly noteworthy on its own, because there have been strange skies in the past, and there have been reports of strange sounds in the atmosphere for many years. While extreme weather has always included flash floods and sinkholes have always opened as the earth slowly shifts. Animals can act erratically at times, and these are all feasible, and none of them are brand new, but it is the timing that has drawn the notice of the entire world. These occurrences are not dispersed over decades, instead they are showing up in the same time frame as if a scripted series of disasters is being unleashed upon us. Signs of instability appear to be appearing in several areas of the natural world at once, one after another, in various corners of the nation, from the burning sunsets in Arizona to the unexplained tremors in the Midwest. The sky acts in an odd way, and the air is filled with inexplicable noises that seem to vibrate within the very bones of those who hear them. Where it seemed safe just hours before, water suddenly rises in a violent surge, and cities' foundations start to crumble into the abyss. Animals move in ways that humans hardly notice, but those who are watching see the sheer terror in their eyes. Additionally, societal tensions within the country itself are still rising as the people turn against one another while the earth turns against them. Even while each incident might be explained separately, when taken as a whole, they form a pattern that many find hard to ignore. And that pattern points to a grand finale that is currently being prepared behind the veil of our reality. Moments like these have frequently prompted communities to stop and think throughout human history, because when several disruptions occur simultaneously in both nature and human existence, people naturally start to wonder more deeply about the potential implications of those changes. These occurrences act as a reminder to some onlookers of the strength and unpredictable nature of the natural world and the absolute fragility of the human condition. Because of the complexity of Earth systems, even minor changes in geology, climate, or atmospheric conditions can have unexpected effects that ripple across the globe. Others think that something more symbolic might be happening, and religious writings have chronicled times of turmoil in both human civilization and the natural environment for centuries as a precursor to a divine intervention. Unusual ecological signals frequently coexist with escalating international instability in those works, suggesting that the earth and the people are bound together in a single destiny. The notion is not that each earthquake or storm has a secret message. Instead, it implies that significant historical shifts are occasionally accompanied by warning indicators that prompt people to reassess their priorities and behaviors before the door of opportunity is closed forever. The same reality holds true whether one views these occurrences from a human, spiritual, or scientific standpoint, because people are forced to pay closer attention to their surroundings during disruptive moments. They serve as a reminder that stability is not assured, and that the world we built can be taken away in the blink of an eye. The sky can change in ways that entirely surprise us. Cities can flood, the ground can collapse, and society itself can change far more quickly than people anticipate, as the thin veneer of civilization is stripped away to reveal the chaos beneath. There are numerous instances in history of societies that thought their structures would last forever, only to learn that change might come at any time and completely alter the landscape forever. These shifts might occasionally happen gradually, but sometimes they show up all at once like a thief in the night, taking everything we hold dear. For many onlookers, the present moment feels so important because of those possibilities, and it goes beyond single geological occurrences or strange weather. It is about the increasing perception that the world might be set to undergo a period of change, one in which new realities are challenging long-held beliefs and preparing us for a transition into a world that will look nothing like the one we currently inhabit. As these signs continue to multiply, I want to ask you a question that weighs heavy on my heart. Do you believe that the simultaneous collapse of nature and society is a mere coincidence? Or are we witnessing the final warnings of a creator who is calling us back to a path of faith and unity? Have you seen the division in your own neighborhood or the strange lights in your own sky? Please stay with us until the very end, because I will be offering a special prayer for every family listening, for every soul feeling the weight of this uncertainty, and for the future of our nation as we face these trials together. Your presence here is not an accident, and your prayers in the comments below are a testament to the strength we can find when we stand together. Like and subscribe to stay connected to this community of faith as we watch the signs and prepare our hearts for whatever comes next, because the world is changing and we must be ready. People frequently react differently in situations like this, as the world they once knew begins to dissolve into a series of inexplicable events. The incidents are dismissed by some as coincidental artifacts of a changing climate or mere statistical anomalies that mean nothing in the long run. Others experience a deep and paralyzing anxiety when they envision the worst, fearing that the stable ground they walk on is nothing more than a fragile illusion. However, history indicates that there is another reaction that can be the most significant reflection of the human spirit. Uncertainty can prompt people and civilizations to reevaluate their goals, their principles, and their ultimate course in this life. They encourage individuals to take a break from their frantic everyday lives and consider more significant issues regarding the kind of future they are creating for their children and their communities. Are the mechanisms we rely on robust enough to endure unforeseen change, or are we building our lives on a foundation of sand? Are communities across this great nation ready to work together to overcome obstacles that defy scientific explanation? Do people pay heed to the signs in their environment, or do they ignore them until it is too late to seek shelter? Answers to these queries don't need to be dramatic, because sometimes they just need a quiet awareness of the shifting reality. Historically, the most significant turning points are sometimes only identified in retrospect, long after the dust has settled and the world has changed forever. Events may appear disjointed or unclear while they are happening, like scattered pieces of a puzzle that don't seem to fit. People don't know they were seeing the beginning of a much bigger change until much later, when they look back and realize the warning signs were everywhere. Nobody can declare with certainty if the present moment marks such a turning point for the United States, but the pattern of events has undoubtedly drawn notice from every corner of the country. The sky burning with unearthly colors, the unexplained sounds that rattle our windows, the rising water that claims our streets, the shifting terrain that swallows our cars, the animals' restless motions in our yards, and the mounting social tension in our cities. When taken as a whole, they create an image that compels many individuals to pay closer attention to the world around them. And maybe these are just uncommon natural occurrences coincidentally occurring in close proximity during a strange window of time. Or maybe they serve as a reminder that the world is always changing in unexpected ways, and that nature does not answer to human authority. In any case, one thing is becoming evident to everyone from the hills of Tennessee to the shores of California. The same silent query is starting to be asked by an increasing number of people as they gaze around at their neighbors and the heavens above. Are these occurrences really coincidental? Or are they indicators that a new era in human history may be about to begin, as the ancient prophecies of old begin to breathe once more? The most crucial question might not be when change will occur if that chapter is already starting to take shape in the darkness. When it does, it might depend on whether we are prepared for it, or if we are still asleep at the wheel of our own destiny. When considering all that has occurred, each incident may not appear particularly noteworthy on its own, because there have been strange skies in the past and reports of strange sounds in the atmosphere for many years. Extreme weather has always included flash floods, and as the Earth gradually changes beneath the surface, sinkholes periodically open in places like Florida and Texas. Animals can act erratically at times, and these are all feasible, and none of them are brand new. However, it is something else that has drawn notice, and that is the moment. Due to the fact that these occurrences are not dispersed over decades, but are showing up in the same time frame one after another in various parts of the nation. Instability appears to be showing up simultaneously in several areas of the natural world, and the sky acts in an odd way as if it is being manipulated by a higher power. The air is filled with inexplicable noises that defy sonar and radar alike. Where it seemed safe just hours before, water suddenly rises and cities' foundations start to crumble under the weight of an unseen pressure. Animals move in ways that humans hardly notice, but those who are watching see the warning in their eyes. Additionally, societal tensions within the country itself are still rising as the heart of the nation becomes a house divided. Even while each incident might be explained separately, when taken as a whole, they form a pattern that many find hard to ignore. And this pattern is pointing toward a day of reckoning that no one can escape. Moments like these have frequently prompted communities to stop and think throughout human history, as they realize their own insignificance in the face of the infinite. When several disruptions occur simultaneously in both nature and human existence, people naturally start to wonder more deeply about the potential implications of those changes. These occurrences act as a reminder to some onlookers of the strength and unpredictable nature of the natural world, and the fact that we are merely guests on this planet. Because of the complexity of Earth systems, even minor changes in geology, climate, or atmospheric conditions can have unexpected effects that ripple through our infrastructure. Others think that something more symbolic might be happening, and religious writings have chronicled times of turmoil in both human civilization and the natural environment for centuries. Unusual ecological signals frequently coexist with escalating international instability in those works, suggesting that the state of our souls is reflected in the state of the earth. The notion is not that each earthquake or storm has a secret message, but instead it implies that significant historical shifts are occasionally accompanied by warning indicators that prompt people to reassess their priorities and behaviors. The same reality holds true whether one views these occurrences from a human, spiritual, or scientific standpoint. People are forced to pay closer attention to their surroundings during disruptive moments because they serve as a reminder that stability is not assured, and that peace is a fragile gift. The sky can alter in ways that entirely surprise us. The ground can collapse beneath our feet, and cities can flood in the blink of an eye. Furthermore, cultures can change significantly more swiftly than most people realize, moving from order to chaos in a matter of days. There are numerous instances in history of societies that thought their systems would last forever only to find out that change may come at any time and completely alter everything they once held dear. These shifts might occasionally happen gradually, but sometimes they show up all at once like a storm that arrives without a single cloud in the sky. For many onlookers, the present moment feels so important because of those possibilities, and it goes beyond single geological occurrences or strange weather. It is about the increasing perception that the world might be set to undergo a period of change, one in which new realities are challenging long-held beliefs. People frequently react differently in situations like this, where some dismiss the incidents as coincidental, while others get scared and start thinking about the worst-case scenarios for their families. However, history indicates that another response can be the most crucial, and that is contemplation. Uncertainty can prompt people and civilizations to reevaluate their goals, their principles, and their course through this life. They encourage individuals to take a break from their everyday lives and consider more significant issues regarding the kind of future they are creating for the generations to come. Are the mechanisms we rely on robust enough to endure unforeseen change, or will our technology fail us when we need it most? Are communities ready to work together to overcome obstacles, or will we turn on one another in the darkness? Do individuals see the signals around them, or do they ignore them until it is too late to seek the truth? Answers to these queries don't need to be dramatic, but they just need awareness, because the most significant turning points are sometimes only identified in retrospect. Events may appear disjointed or unclear while they are happening, and people don't know they were seeing the beginning of a much bigger change until much later. Again, nobody can determine with certainty if the present moment marks such a turning point, but the pattern of events has undoubtedly drawn notice from the highest levels of society. The sky, the sounds, the rising water, the shifting terrain, the animals' restless motions, and the mounting social tension are all pieces of a larger story. When taken as a whole, they create an image that compels many individuals to pay closer attention to the words of the prophets. Maybe these are just uncommon natural occurrences, coincidentally occurring in close proximity, or maybe they serve as a reminder that the world is always changing in unexpected ways. In any case, one thing is becoming evident, as the same silent query is starting to be asked by an increasing number of people as they gaze around at the shifting horizon. Are these occurrences really coincidental? Or are they indicators that a new era in human history may be about to begin, as the heavens and the earth begin to tremble in unison? The most crucial question might not be when change will occur, if that chapter is already starting to take shape right before our eyes. When it does, it might depend on whether we are prepared for it, and whether we have built our lives on the rock of faith. As we go on the air tonight, we are keeping an eye on a number of developing stories involving the president and high-level officials who are reportedly monitoring these events from secure locations. Strange things have been happening all throughout America in the last few days, starting with meteorological events that have no scientific precedent, followed by reports of unexplained lights in states like Virginia and Maryland. Unusual seismic activity occurred moments later in areas of the East Coast that don't often experience it, sending people into the streets of Washington, D.C. in a state of pure confusion. Each incident may be disregarded on its own, but taken as a whole, they create a pattern that has started to garner notice on a global scale. Indeed, they are unique, and yes, they caused anxiety in a lot of people. But the fact that many of the major news networks hardly appear to be discussing it makes it much more alarming, as if there is a deliberate attempt to keep the population in the dark while the world changes. This won't be covered by the mainstream media because they are too afraid of the panic it would cause. The news outlets are not saying anything because they don't have an explanation that fits their narrative. However, people are crying, testifying, making connections, and claiming to have witnessed something, that altered their perception of this period of world turmoil in a number of states across the nation. You will recognize that time is running out and that Jesus is returning soon after you understand the biblical links and the significance of this moment for our age and for the future of your eternal soul. We will explore this scenario, so stay tuned until the very conclusion of the video, where I will demonstrate the passages that were fulfilled to you in real time. And I will tell you what you need to do now to prepare for what is about to happen, because the window of opportunity is closing fast. Please let us know whether you're ready by clicking the like and subscribe buttons to join our community of believers who refuse to be silent. Nothing indicated that the majority of Washington, D.C. was asleep in the middle of the night, but one of the most bizarre storms people had ever seen would engulf the entire capital in a matter of minutes. It started out abruptly with a rumble that swept across the sky in the distance. At first, it wasn't odd because the area occasionally experiences summer storms, but the sound then became louder and more visceral. Instantly, thunder started to reverberate from every direction, bouncing between the marble buildings of the Capitol and sweeping around the National Mall with a ferocity that felt personal. Then the hail started to fall, but it was not the tiny pellets that occasionally appear during storms. The pavement, the rooftops, the monuments, and the cars parked along the streets were all struck by big hard shards of ice that looked like jagged glass falling from the heavens. The sound spread everywhere in a matter of seconds, and the thunder continued to roar without pause. Numerous witnesses reported feeling it vibrate through the ground as it rolled repeatedly and loudly, shaking the very foundations of our government. For a moment, many simply stood there astonished and frozen by the sheer power of the display. Later, a man who had been strolling close to the reflecting pool claimed that when the hail started to fall around him, he froze in place because the atmosphere felt charged with a divine presence that he could not explain. He said, "I didn't even consider running because it went by so quickly, and it felt as though the sky was speaking directly to me." As we look at these events, we must ask ourselves if we are listening to the warnings or if we are waiting for the final storm to break. Please stay with us for the final prayer, because I will be praying for the safety of our capital and for every citizen in this nation who is searching for the light in these dark times. Like and subscribe and leave your prayers in the comments below, because we are one family under God, and together we will face whatever the heavens bring. It seemed as though the entire sky was cracking open due to the intensity of the thunder, as if the atmosphere itself could no longer contain the raw power surging through it. But a few seconds later, the most remarkable and terrifying moment occurred when a powerful bolt of lightning struck close to the Washington Monument, right after another stronger thunderclap ripped across the sky, with a sound that felt like the world was being torn in two. It was much bigger than any typical lightning strike, according to witnesses who stood frozen in the Capitol. Rather than instantaneously vanishing, the flash appeared to radiate forth from the monument, branching like a massive web of blazing veins across the clouds above the city, as if a celestial nervous system was being revealed to the world below. The light was so intense that it momentarily appeared to be daytime, according to a security guard stationed nearby who described the scene as both beautiful and horrifying. He clarified that it wasn't merely a fleeting flicker, because the entire Capitol glowed with a ghostly radiance as the lightning spread across the sky, and the hail appeared to be illuminating as it landed on the pavement like fallen stars. According to some experts, the phenomena might have been caused by a very strong electrical discharge, along with heavy hail and atmospheric moisture, creating a perfect conductor for this supernatural display. Lightning has the ability to disperse through ice crystals under some circumstances, resulting in an effect where light spreads over a significant area of the sky, but even still there were unanswered questions that science struggled to address. Scientists are still investigating the unnatural brightness. Witnesses observed the way The lightning seemed to crawl across the clouds, and the peculiar timing of the hailstorm forming so rapidly above the seat of power in our nation. And people frequently look for greater significance after experiencing such events, because deep down we know that nature does not act this way without a reason. According to Scripture, storms are times when the heavens appear to burst through the sky to remind us of who is truly in control. This is precisely what Psalm 29 says, as it declares that over the rivers the Lord's voice can be heard, and the glorious God thunders while fire erupts from the Lord's voice. Such sections have been interpreted for centuries as poetic depictions of the force exhibited during storms, yet on this night it felt less like poetry and more like a direct confrontation. The enormous power of nature, such as this thunder and lightning, serves as a constant reminder of how insignificant humans are in relation to the vastness of the sky. And many witnesses reported that the same thought occurred to them on that night in Washington, when lightning illuminated the hail-filled skies above the monuments, and thunder reverberated through the very bones of the city. It didn't feel like just another storm, it felt like a divine interruption in the affairs of men. Thus, the question gradually started to shift from curiosity to a deep-seated fear. It was no longer only about how amazing the storms and hail had been, but the underlying question arose whether they are merely forces of nature or urgent reminders of how insignificant we are beneath the heavy hand of the sky. And the sky started displaying indications that something strange was happening once more, just as everyone was still in shock at the unsettling scene at the National Monument. It started with lights that defied the laws of physics. Dispersed reports began to surface online late in the evening, as people from all around the nation were aiming their cameras up at the sky in an attempt to capture something they couldn't quite put their finger on. High above the clouds, little bursts of pink and blue light were emerging like silent explosions in the dark. They appeared to be far-off lightning at first, but there was something distinct about them because there was no sound to the flashes, and instead of hitting downward like typical lightning, these traveled slowly across the sky as if they were searching for something on the earth. The light appeared to ripple over the clouds in multiple videos, resembling weak electric currents moving through the sky in a rhythmic dance. More recordings surfaced in a matter of hours as dash cameras and security systems across several states captured short pulses, illuminating the night sky with an unearthly glow. People saw the same odd hues showing up hundreds of miles away when they examined footage on social media, and the focus then turned to the moon with a sense of rising dread. When pictures of a deep crimson blood moon started to circulate quickly on social media sites like Instagram, and ex-photographers caught it rising over both peaceful country settings and jagged city skylines. The moon appeared darker than usual in several photos, shining red against a sky that still had the faint remnants of those earlier flashes, creating a visual representation of the warnings found in the Book of Joel. The mix was unnerving to many onlookers as a red moon hung low over the horizon, while strange lights moved across the sky in a sequence that felt scripted by a higher power. The ground started to move shortly after midnight, starting subtle at first with glass in kitchen cupboards rattling and lamps shaking slightly from side to side. Many assumed it was a passing truck or a fleeting quake that would go away in a matter of seconds, but the shaking became more intense and violent. In a matter of seconds, the shaking became severe enough to force people to flee their homes into the cold night air. Overhead, power lines wavered, and sudden bursts of noise came from car alarms in a number of areas as the earthquake moved away from its epicenter in strong and terrifying waves. People's suspicions were quickly reinforced by emergency messages confirming that a significant earthquake had struck. The Earth did not fully settle for the next few hours, as the area was still experiencing smaller earthquakes that felt like the planet was shivering in fear. Residents were reminded by aftershocks that the ground underneath them was still healing from the initial rupture that occurred far below the surface. Later geologists clarified that aftershocks are a typical feature of significant earthquakes because tension is released along faults beneath the crust when tectonic plates abruptly shift. The surrounding rock may not stabilize for hours or even weeks, but the series of occurrences was hard to ignore for many who had only hours before seeing the unusual lights and the red moon. The ground reacted after the sky did in a perfect synchronization of chaos. One unpleasant thought persisted among those who had seen the sky during the quiet hours after the earthquake, when inhabitants waited for the ground to stop quivering and emergency workers went through darkened streets. Occasionally, the indicators show up above us well in advance of any movement in the ground below, as if the heavens are trying to give us one last chance to look up. And although the ground was still trembling from the earthquake and aftershocks continued to ripple beneath the surface, another unexpected sign was silently appearing far away near the edge of the sea. For ages, readers have been captivated by a particular moment in the ancient writings of the prophet Moses, where the earth itself reacts to the presence of heavenly power in the book of Exodus. The earth seems to breathe fire and heat, mountains quake and smoke rises in a display of absolute sovereignty. The natural world appears to respond in dramatic and unnerving ways in one of the earliest descriptions found in the Bible, and now unusual reports have recently started to surface from the American West. A number of geysers in Yellowstone National Park that typically erupt on regular schedules have begun acting strangely, with some erupting with greater force than anticipated, while others have let out unexpected blasts of steam that don't occur at regular intervals. Periods of extraordinary ground warmth in specific regions have also been noted by park visitors who felt the heat through the soles of their shoes. Thermal vents that typically emit constant steam plumes have shown signs of increased activity, and the surrounding air has felt substantially hotter than normal in a few places, as if a great furnace was being stoked beneath the park. Because Yellowstone is situated above the Yellowstone caldera, one of the planet's greatest volcanic systems, scientists are always keeping an eye on these systems with a hidden sense of worry. Heat from deep down forces water back toward the surface, creating the park's well-known geysers and hot springs, but it naturally draws notice when those patterns change even just a little. At about the same time, another strange image started to emerge along the Mississippi River hundreds of miles away, where clusters of dead fish floating along parts of the river were reported by locals and fishermen. Online videos showed fish drifting slowly with the stream and coming to the surface in unusually large numbers, creating a silver carpet of death upon the water. The occurrence could be explained by abrupt changes in water temperature or oxygen levels, but the timing of extraordinary geothermal